Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, ladies and gentlemen. I am sorry. I am late. I am attempting to multitask and I am trying to do too many things at once. I just got back from the studio and I put the potatoes in the oven and got the salad ready and got 2 minutes behind schedule. And I apologize for that. Great news, ladies and gentlemen. Great news. The next phase of liberal snowplowing do-gooder fundraising is going to be to endow a Ray Massucco chair at a Ray Massucco stool at the Miss Bellows Falls Diner. Those of you who may or may not know, well, those of you who know Ray Massucco, he needs no introduction, but those of you who do not know Ray Massucco was a lawyer here in town, ladies and gentlemen, here in Bellows Falls, Vermont. And he always made time. He always made time for various do-gooder projects. He and I worked together on a lot of things. And Ray really loved music. And Ray took over Roots on the River when I was sick and tired of doing it and did a wonderful job. I didn't go because watching someone else do something that I think the way I do it is correct it's a hunter trait that is not, it's not a good thing to go and impose that on someone else. So I didn't go to Roots on the River much, but I sure appreciated that Ray kept it going and people who went loved it. And Ray left the building way too soon last September. And he would love what we're doing with the diner. And he would love having a stool dedicated to him. And I am so happy to report that as of 7:49 p.m. on, what is this, August 27th? As of 7:49 p.m. on August 27th, 2023, after having just announced it this morning, we have already raised $2,130 of the $5,000 needed, which takes us just down to $2,870 still to go. That means, as Alan Shartok would say in WAMC fundraising, which is bar none, the best public radio fundraising I have ever heard in my life. Actually, the best public radio, the best fundraising I've ever heard in my life. I would tune in to WAMC just to listen to Alan Shartok fundraise. Because he would do wonderful things like say, I'm going to play the banjo until we raise $5,000. And then he'd play the banjo really, really badly. It was wonderful. Or he'd say, you know, cat people, they just don't donate to public radio. Dog people, they donate to public radio. But cat people, they really don't. And of course, I would get all the cat people donating, and then he'd say, you know, it's the dog people versus the cat people. It's wonderful. It's great fundraising. But anyway, he would say, that brings us into the 2000s. We have less than $3,000 to raise now, ladies and gentlemen, to honor Ray Massucco, Join with me. We're going to keep this fundraiser going, ladies and gentlemen. We have many, many people to thank. The unidentified ungulate is going to get a workout. Are you ready? Oh, many of our number, by the way, are not here tonight because Dave Alvin's final night on his tour. Dave Alvin, Jimmy Dale Gilmore, and Dead Rock West. They're at the Academy of Music in Northampton, Mass. tonight. So many of our faithful are not being so faithful, but we wish them well nonetheless. We wish them well. So a few people to thank. First off, providing the idea and the seed money for the Ray Massucco stool at the Miss Bellows Falls Diner are the good folks led by Kathy Bergman at the Bellows Falls Historical Society. Thank you. And then, are you ready? We're just going to run down that list, ladies and gentlemen. We're just going to run down this list. First off, A Nani Moose, Ms. Terry Hudson, the wonderful Betty Sue, who has been on the road been on the road with James McMurtry and has now been on the road with her friends for 2 days or 4 days and is now doing a house concert in Austin tonight and then has 3 more gigs and then a foot operation and then goes back on the road with James McMurtry and this Betty Sue, the wonderful Karen Mallory, the equally wonderful Laurie LaRue, the equally wonderful Rick Kabatsky, our good friend John Wilhelm, my partner in the Red concert series and Ray Massucco concert series, the great Ezra Veach, Ms. Mary Lou Massucco herself, Ms. Catherine Fisher, Ms. Martha Rowley, Ms. Karen Faisler, Mr. Greg Cyrek, the inimitable JT Mayer, Mike Dunham, protecting donkeys wherever he goes, Mr. Mike Dunham, Ron Sorsgaard, Tom Noyes, and out there in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, making sure no more houses blow sky high, because he's up in the sky himself. My very, very, very tall cousin who just recently celebrated National Dog Day with his little wee dog, Ginger, and his excellent wife, Elise, Mr. Nat Hunter. Thank you all so much. Let's keep that money coming in to honor our friend Ray Massucco. Thank you all so much. Well, now, it is time. Hi, Will. There's my brother, Will Hunter. Will Hunter joins us tonight. Will and I had coffee the other day, and he forgot to tell me, or I forgot to ask him, the story of my brother, my brother Graham. For some reason, one day when Graham was a kid, he decided that he learned that the FBI has offices in many cities. And he went off on his bicycle to find the FBI office in Milford, New Hampshire. Never found it. Never found it. Will, you got to tell me this story next time we get together. Anyway, it is up. Will says not quite. So I guess I told it wrong. All right. Next time after I have coffee with him again, I will tell it correctly. Mr. Robert Benchley. Mr. Robert Benchley. This is a Benchley story I have not read before. I have not read this one aloud. And it's very funny. I don't know why I haven't read it. It is, I mean, it's dated, but he was writing 100 years ago. So for someone who wrote 100 years ago, it's remarkable how undated he is. This boys' camp business. There seems to be an idea prevalent amongst parents that a good way to solve the summer problem for the boy is to send him to boys' camp. At any rate, the idea seems to be prevalent in the advertising pages of the magazines. If all the summer camps for boys and girls turn out the sterling citizens in embryo that they claim to do, the future of this country is as safe as if it were in the hands of a governing board consisting of the 12 apostles. From the folders and advertisements, we learn that Camp Womaganset in the foothills of the White Mountains sends yearly into the world a bevy of, quote, strong, manly boys, ready for the duties of citizenship and equipped to face life with a clear eye and a keen mind, end quote. It does not say anything about their digestions, but I suppose those are in tip-top shape too. The outlook for the next generation of mothers is no less dazzling. Camp Wawilla for girls, we learn, pays particular attention to the spiritual development of tomorrow's women, and compared to the civic activities of the majority of alumni of Wawilla, those of Florence Nightingale or Frances Willard would have to be listed under the head of junior girls' work. Now, This is all very splendid, and it is comforting to think that when every boy and girl goes to Wamagansett or Wawilla, there will be no more younger generation problem and probably no crime waves worth mentioning. But there's several other features that go hand in hand with sending the boy to camp, which I would like to take up from the parents' point of view, if I may. I will limit myself to 20 minutes. In the first place, when your boy comes home from camp, he is what is known in the circular as, quote, manly and independent. This means that when you go swimming with him, he pushes you off the raft and he jumps on your shoulders, holding you underwater until you're as good as drowned. Better, in fact. Before he went to camp, you used to take a kindly interest in his swimming and tell him to take your time, take it easy, with a feeling of superiority which, while it may have had no foundation in your own natatorial processes, nevertheless was one of the few points of pride left to you in your obese middle age. After watching one of these heroes dive off a tower and swim underwater to the raft and back, there was a sort of balm in being able to turn to your son and show him how to do the crawl stroke, even though you yourself weren't one of the 7 foremost crawl experts in the country. You could do it better than your son could, and that was something. It was also very comforting to be able to stand on the springboard and say, now watch daddy, see? Hands like this, bend your knees, see? Here's the picture. Yeah, there's daddy showing the son. The fact that such exhibitions usually culminated in your landing heavily on the area bounded by the knees and the chest was embarrassing perhaps, but at that you weren't quite so bad as the boy when he tried the same thing. But after a summer at camp, the manly independent boy comes back and makes you look like Horace Greeley in his later years. Do this one, Dad, he says, turning a double flip off the springboard and cutting into the water like a knife blade. If you try it, you strain your back. If you don't try it, your self-respect and prestige are shattered. The best thing to do is to pretend not to hear him. You can do this by disappearing under the surface every time it looks as if he were going to pull a new one. After a while, however, this ruse gets you pretty soggy and pretty waterlogged, and you might better just go in and get dressed as rapidly as possible. The worst phase of this newfound independence is the romping instinct that seems to be developed to a high state of obnoxiousness at all boys' camps. I went to camp when I was a boy, but I do not remember being as unpleasant about my fun as boys today seem to be. I have done many mean things in my time. I have tortured flies. I have kicked crutches out from under cripples' arms. But I have never, so help me Confucius, pushed anybody off a raft or come up behind anyone in the water and jumped up on his shoulders. And I don't think that Lincoln ever did either. There's evidently a course in raft pushing and back jumping in boys' camps today. Those photographs that you see in the camp advertisements, if you examine them closely, they will disclose in 9 cases out of 10 a lot of boys pushing each other off rafts. You can't see the ones who are jumping on others' shoulders as they are underwater. But I want to serve notice right now that the next boy who pushes me off a raft when I am not looking or tries to play leapfrog over me in 10 feet of water is going to be made practically useless as tomorrow's citizen, and I am going to do it myself too. If it happens to be my own son, well, it just makes the affair all the sadder. Another thing that these manly boys learn at camp is a savage habit of getting up at sunrise. The normal, healthy boy should be very late sleeper. Who does not remember in his own normal, healthy boyhood having to be called 3, 4, or even 5 times in the morning before it seemed sensible to get up? One of the happiest memories of childhood is that of the maternal voice calling up from downstairs, fading away into silence, and the realization of be possibly 15 minutes before it called again. All this is denied to the boy who goes to a summer camp. When he comes home, he is so steeped in the pernicious practice of early rising that he cannot shake it off. Along about 6 in the morning, he begins dropping shoes and fixing up a new stand for the radio in his room. Then he goes out in the backyard and practices tennis shots up against the house. Then he runs over a few whistling arrangements of popular songs and rides his bicycle up and down the gravel path. You would be surprised at the sound that 2 bicycle wheels can make on a gravel path at 6:30 in the morning. A forest fire might make the same crackling sound, but you probably wouldn't be having a forest fire out in your yard at 6:30 in the morning. Not if you had any sense, you wouldn't. Just what the boys do at camp when they get up at 6 is a mystery. They seem to have some sort of setting up exercises and a swim, more pushing each other off of rafts. But they can do that by getting up at 8 and still have a good long day ahead of them. I never knew anyone who got up at 6 who did anything more useful between that time and breakfast than banging a tennis ball up against the side of the house, waiting for the civilized members of the party to get up. We have to do enough waiting in this life without getting up early to wait for breakfast. Next summer, I have a good mind to run a boys' camp of my own. It will be on Lake Chabanagog, Gamagog. And yes, there is one too in Webster, Massachusetts. And I will call it Camp Chabangagog, Gamag for manly boys. And by the word manly, I will mean like men. In other words, everyone shall sleep just as long as they want. And when they do get up, there will be no depleting setting up exercises. The day will be spent just as the individual camper gosh darn pleases. No organized hikes. I'd like a word on the hike problem someday, too. No camp spirit, no talk about tomorrow's manhood, and no pushing people off of rafts. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that does Benchley Night for tonight. We'll be back next Sunday with another edition of Benchley Night. I think if we're close to having the Ray Massucco stool endowed by that time, it may be time for the annual reading of opera synopses. We have not had that for a while. Anyway, we'll see. We'll see. Until then, you take good care. And let's see, what should you not do? You should not, don't support politicians getting mugshots. Or support them getting mugshots, just don't support them. Okay? You take it easy.